It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is officially a Friday, and I'm glad you made it. It was a long one, wasn't it? A good one, but wow, what a week.
Today's show is sponsored by the Nihilist Party, because voting for nothing makes more sense than the options we have.
Probably the best one I can run. I might have to run that on Tuesday when the official primary hits us.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Morning, Steve. And Jim's out there, too. They're already texting me stuff, sending me pictures, which you can do off the Wake Up Wyoming app. Now, I will get into a little bit later because it's sort of a pet peeve of mine. Kamala Harris wants to talk to everybody about price controls as a way of controlling inflation, which is the worst possible way in the world to try to control inflation, which I'll do that a little bit later on this morning. First off, though, I just started looking for the weird. When it gets to the end of the week especially, just looking for something different, because I don't know about you, I get tired of when I do go looking for news, seeing the same old things over and over again. And while I don't keep any news station, Fox or MSNBC or CNN, I don't watch them. But when I do go by a television that has them on, they're always talking about the same damn thing. So, have you taken your vacation yet this year? Hang on. You have no idea where I'm going with this. I haven't. I haven't taken any vacation time at all this year, but I will. I was thinking about what I really wanted to do with it. Then I came across this. North Korea is opening one of its borders to foreign tourists in December, if you want to wait that long. Okay. North Korea will resume international tourism to its northeastern city of, I can't pronounce it, on December. Now, by the way, I know about this city. There's a book, I got to get it finished up and get it out there and get it published. But there's a book that I wrote a while back that takes place, it's a novel, that takes place in North Korea, which means I had to research the hell out of North Korea. This particular city that they're talking about is a East Coastal city, and they built it from scratch, which is what North Korea does. Bring in basically their slave labor, and they built an entire resort town, which looks magnificent. The airport looks magnificent. The shops look incredible. The ocean is right there. You will love the hotels. The only thing is, nobody ever goes there. It's just, even though it's up and running, it never really has any visitors. So the story says, the move is a sign that the reclusive country, also known as the Hermit Kingdom, which is the name of my novel, The Hermit Kingdom, is ready to reopen borders to bigger groups of foreign tourists after strict COVID controls. Because we all know that you didn't visit North Korea because of COVID, right? Quote, we have received confirmation from our local partner that tourism to this city in North Korea and likely the rest of the country will officially resume in December. By the way, if you want to go to see the rest of the country, you're not going to be able to see everything. And everywhere you go, you will have multiple minders following you and telling you where you can and can't go, because they're only going to let you see what they want you to see. International flights in and out of North Korea resumed last year, and a small group of Russian tourists flew to North Korea for a private tour in February. Top foreign officials, including the Russian President Vladimir Putin in June, have been visiting the country. Well, if Putin is going, dear God, it's got to be good, right? But North Korea has not really been fully open to tourists since 2020. Let me correct the story. They've never been fully open to tourists. All right, reading on. Having waited for over 4 years to make this announcement, the tour company is very excited for the opening of North Korea tourism once again. The firm said, adding its local partner would confirm itineraries and dates. I wonder if we get to see the concentration camps. Wouldn't that be so cool? And let them know, as we show up, they're going to look at us and go, wow, you guys are really fat, you Americans. But then again, they don't know what food looks like. Honestly, they don't. Remember, I've told you before, there's only one fat man in North Korea. Everybody else is starving. Story says North Korea has been building what is called a socialist utopia, and that city is supposed to show that. It's near the Chinese border, a model of highly civilized mountains. And it is I'll tell you this, it is a beautiful area. I've seen pictures of this. It's stunning. With new apartments and hotels, a ski resort, commercial and cultural and medical facilities. Leader Kim Jong-un in July sacked or demoted some senior officials for their irresponsible handling of the flagship project, which means they're either in a concentration camp or dead. See, in North Korea, if you're not doing a good job, you don't get fired. You're either thrown into a concentration camp, you and people around you, like your wife, your kids, your other relatives, all get thrown into a concentration camp, or you're dead, along with those people around you. Another travel agency has announced that tourists will be able to go to the city this winter. They're hoping to take advantage of people who want to go skiing. So there you go. If you were looking for something to do, I know we're talking December here. You were hoping to do something sooner than that, but it is a stunningly beautiful area, and they do have skiing. Now, also, as far as the food goes, you will get served top-notch food, which is really interesting because the rest of the country doesn't have any food, I mean. So here you are living in this luxurious place with all this great food and all of this great service. And yet, if you were able to leave this magnificent city that they built just for tourists, there's not going to be many people there with you. If you were able to leave and get into the countryside, you'd get to see what communism, socialism really looks like. And that's why I've said before, there's only one fat man in North Korea, and everybody else is starving. In fact, just be careful. When it's time to leave, there's going to be people who they're going to want to go with you. They won't be able to, and if they're found out, they'll be killed too. But that's your wonderful vacation to the Hermit Kingdom. You want to go someplace unusual? That would be it. Now, I guarantee you some YouTube documentary maker is going to go ahead and take them up on his offer and go vacation there just to see what it's like. I mean, why the hell not?
All right, glitter bitches, you want to make fun of rednecks because they learned to trade and making $100,000 a year while you spend $100,000 on an education and living back at your mom's basement while looking at your political science degree?
Admit it, you were hoping somebody would say that. Wake Up Wyoming goes anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
6:22 is the time. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. Before I get to the story I have lined up for you here, I just came across this. It's supposed to be a news site here, and it says 80% of Americans believe the news they see on social media is biased. I'm going to read that again. 80% of Americans believe the news they see on social media is biased. Okay, let's pretend that that's true. Who the hell is the 20% that believes the news on social media is not biased and okay? All right, moving on. So I just told you about North Korea. Let's go north of North Korea, around that area. Go to China. Chinese company caught stealing dead bodies to make dental implants. I believe that that's not the only... I'm sorry, were you eating breakfast? I'm sorry. I believe that that's not the only thing that China steals dead bodies for. See, I apologize for getting gross while you're having breakfast, but then I keep doing it, right? All right. So the Chinese Communist Party, vast army of social media censors, began cracking down hard on a story days after it broke, deleting a string of posts on the microblogging platform, what's called Weibo. They say it talks about a law firm. They broke the story on August 7th with posts accusing funeral homes of sending vast numbers of human remains to an area where the corpses are then basically taken for all sorts of things, including dental implants. Make sure if you have dentures or an implant, it's not made in China, in other words. So according to the sources, the company took what's needed from the bodies, cremating the leftovers, and then sent it back to the families who had no idea that the loved ones had been defiled in such a way. How would they know? The story drew attention on Chinese social media because more than 70 families became aware of the scheme and are suing the biotech firm. Oh, interesting. More than 4,000 cadavers were believed to have been illegally diverted to the bone graft scheme stolen from dozens of cities in 7 provinces, generating about $53 million in revenue, so they're saying. I want to know who's getting these teeth. The corpse stealing scandal briefly received attention from the Chinese state media, which claimed the government is investigating all of the cases. And some 75 suspects have already been taken into custody. One report said police seized more than 18 metric tons of human bones and 34,000 finished bone grafts. However, almost every state media report on the scandal abruptly disappeared. This sounds familiar here in the United States, doesn't it? Something that you were reading just suddenly disappears from social media or the news somewhere, or doesn't get reported at all. Yet in communist China, it's common. We're not used to it here in America. But it's happening here now. So the original posts discussing the horrifying scandal, state media reported investigating, but then again, things got, and it was supposed to be petty corruption, but then things just got quiet about it. Here's a quote. All I can say is I can still see my post about this, says one blogger on this Chinese blog site. But nobody else can see them from now on. Again, what does that sound like to you, Facebook? To name one. Which is one of the reasons why Elon Musk bought out Twitter. Because they were doing the same exact thing. You post something you look at it and go, well, that's true, I want other people to see this, or that's just funny, I want other people to see it. And their censors say no. And now if they don't take it down altogether or demand you do, it just disappears from other people's view. This gentleman says the scandal has been completely deleted from that social media site in China's list of trending topics in internet search engines. He was then dragged into a meeting with legal regulators, after which he began refusing to discuss the grave-robbing story any further with Chinese social media figures. So the difference here is, when it comes to social media, you get dragged into a government office. Now, that doesn't happen in America, but it is happening in the UK, which I'm going to get into next hour because I got some more news on that, where if you post something offensive or something they don't like, you might just get dragged down to the police station. Some observers suspect the Chinese Communist Party decided to censor the story because the industry is a subsidiary of a state-owned Beijing China nuclear corporation, whatever the case may be. And then it talks about other places it might have, even stock prices for the company have dropped a little bit. They were worried about things like this, so they went ahead and took it down. What got me was the similarities between that and what the Chinese government did and what we've seen on social media here in America. But even worse yet, what's happening in the European Union and what's happening in the UK. Now, again, I'm going to go to the UK because people have been arrested for bumper stickers where they express their opinions. And there are some that have had enough and are standing up against it, including some famous people like Rowan Atkinson, who played Mr. Bean, among other famous comedy roles. He decided to stand up and say something about it. And I've got some audio clips from what he said to the press because he was just, as usual, the man was just absolutely brilliant. But we'll get into that next hour of the program, because while there is censorship across the board, across the world, even here in America, there is a fight, a pushback against it. We need to push a lot harder, but that's part of the reason I'm bringing it up. All right, coming up on 6:30 a.m. Friday morning. Got some local news coming away after local news update on the weather forecast, and you and I get back into it again. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I give you some phones, open phones, every day of the week. On Friday, it's the entire program. So at any point, you can interrupt me, change the subject. I'll just kind of roll with it. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
6:36 the time. Wake Up Wyoming. So I told you earlier that last week, I think the week before, Rocky Mountain Power here in Wyoming wants to raise rates again. And we knew this was coming. And so they laid out the whole number of reasons why. And we went through some of that. Some of it does have to do with wind power, but it has a lot to do with more than that. And so here comes the discussion again. Well, Rocky Mountain Power needs to meet with customers in order to do it. Every time they want something like this, they have to go hold public meetings. And it's part of the law and talk about it. So, according to Oil City News, this will begin in Casper. It'll go around the state. So whatever radio station you listen to me on or app or wherever you are, at some point one of these meetings will come near you. So here's the one in Casper. With a request into the Wyoming Public Service Commission to raise its rates by 14.7%. Rocky Mountain Power wants to meet with customers to talk face-to-face about why more money is needed. We all know how that meeting's going to go. But all right, earlier, Rocky Mountain Power submitted its request to raise $123.5 million from its Wyoming customers, citing renewable energy investments, which, first off, I don't call it investments, and I don't call it renewable energy. None of that's true. And skyrocketing insurance costs for wildfire liability. The increase to the average customer monthly bill, they say, would be like $17.17 a month for the average customer. If the request is approved, the average is based on a customer's 700 kilowatt hours per month, the company said. Wildfire reported Rocky Mountain Power's 144,000 Wyoming customers saw a 5.5% general rate increase in January. And I can't remember what the original ask was for that. But we all know how this works. They ask for way more, knowing that they're going to be beaten down to the price they actually want. That's typical, but it's like when you go to buy a car or you want to buy a house. There's the asking price, then there's actually what you can knock them down to. Rocky Mountain Power's new president and company representatives will be on hand during the meeting. Open house to speak to customers about the proposed case wildfire mitigation, power shuttle process, things like that. Casper's meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 27th. That's Tuesday, August 27th, starting at 2 p.m. for industrial customers and 4 p.m. for residential customers. So Tuesday, August 27th, 4 p.m. for residential customers. The industrial portion will last 2 hours, while residents part will last for 3 hours. The open house will take place at the Ramcoda Hotel and Conference Center in Casper, Wyoming. So that's all the information I have so far. Now, when I say this is the details of the Casper meeting, there will be meetings all over the state. So stay tuned for details about that, because here again, that's part of what they have to do. If they want to raise rates, they can't just raise it. They have to go to a Wyoming board and talk to them. They have to go to the general public and talk to the general public. I like the idea that they are splitting it up into, and here's what business owners need to know, because some businesses use a lot of electricity, as you can imagine, and here's what the average homeowner will need to know. So there's two separate meetings. So wherever you're listening to me in the state of Wyoming, and this program covers most of the state, you're going to get a meeting near you at some point. And here again, not trying to be a jerk about it, we all know how the meeting is going to go because we heard about this last time. And what happened last time was the same thing. They asked for an outrageous amount, and when it finally came down, they were given some kind of a rate increase, nowhere near what they originally asked for. But again, I think we all know they expected that, and now you're paying a little bit more. All right, so this has to go through, and I do look at this when it comes to you have to pay for part of the what they call renewable energy, the wind power. Here again, I look at that and think, well, aren't they making enough money to put up wind power? Now, and let's not forget, wind power is also heavily subsidized, too. So you're not getting enough money to do that? All right. If you guys want to build more power, you should be making enough money to build, whether it's wind or solar or another coal plant or natural gas plant. You should be bringing in enough money to go ahead and do that yourself without having to raise rates. And I do understand the argument that I've heard before. We have sort of a monopoly. Well, we do have monopoly here in this part of the country where there's one power company taking care of everybody for this. And it would be nice to get some competition in, but also get government out of it. Let's get things like carbon sequestration out of it. Let's get government mandates out of it, government subsidies out of it. Prices will come down a hell of a lot. 642, Wake Up Wyoming.
Hello, I think my friend just died. Okay, I understand. First things first, make sure he's dead, okay? Okay, I got it. Okay, now what?
Well, that image is going to stick with you all day. Wake up, Wyoming. Glenn Woods is live on AM 1030 K2 Radio and the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
6:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Down to Laramie we go to talk to David Settle about sports. So I've got a little update for you, Dave. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning to you.
There's that. We talked about the hot, tall girl that is now replaced by Ray Gunn, the one who scored nothing at the Olympics for breakdancing.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of.
Yeah.
You talked about memes, Instagram stories about my dogs now training for the 2028 Olympics because they're out there in the grass rolling on their backside, and that's Yeah.
Oh, and her picture doing that little pterodactyl pose has been inserted into so many things. It's hysterical. First off, she finally spoke up. And while she was really not happy with all of the negative publicity, she also says she worked very hard on that, which I can't believe. I think her working hard on that probably involved a lot of alcoholic beverages, but I'm just going out on a limb. But then it says here, just like the hawk tall girl was able to make a bunch of money off of that. She was smart. As soon as she saw she was going viral, she got an agent. And next thing you know, she's making appearances. There's all sorts. You can buy all sorts of things based on her, and hats.
Getting her 5 minutes of fame.
Oh, yeah, and she's made millions off of it. That's smart. Take advantage of that. Now that she's fading away, it says here, Ray Gunn, as she calls herself, could be set to make millions. I even already saw a bobblehead version of her.
Oh, goodness. Come on, people.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Well, still, I mean, when people wanting to go out and have fun with this in their image, and again, they're going to buy paraphernalia and so on, and remember it for a few more years to come, then all that stuff gets thrown into the trash. But in the short term, though, here's her 15 minutes of fame, and she's already been contacted by agents. This is your moment. I know it's negative publicity, but you can make millions off of this. Do you want to ride with it? So now, let me ask you, Dave. If we were to make fun of you internationally for the next 6 months, but you could make millions off of that, would you do it?
Yeah, because I'm just dumb enough to do it.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, see, there it is. Yeah, we all have that. All right, good morning, everybody. How are you here on a Friday? The high school golf season underway, and that did include Douglas wrapping up their invitational on Thursday. And Maddie Brace of Douglas rallied and won the girls' title by 5 shots on her home course. Tate Nichols of Wheatland won the boys' title by 6 shots, and they led the Douglas girls and Wheatland boys respectively to the team titles down at the Douglas Community Club on Thursday. Brace with a 167 total beat her teammate Molly Parker by 5 shots. Tate Nichols beat his teammate by 6 shots with a 142-day total. As for the final team standings, the Douglas girls and Wheatland boys ran away with it. Douglas girls ended up winning by 47 shots, and the Wheatland boys ended up winning by 29 shots down in Douglas. You also had invites going on in Glen Rock, as well as Powell and Green River started their tournament. They'll wrap up today. The high school tennis season gets underway this weekend. That's right, 2024 tennis season. Not a lot going on this week. Most teams will make their debut next week, but there are a few matches that are happening, and it does include the 2 Casper schools hosting Rollins and Sheridan in a little round robin. They're not really keeping official results, just kind of an early season tune-up before they get going. And then Kelly Walsh and Natrona will be here in Laramie for dual competition coming up on Monday. We've got a preview, and the scoreboard will be out here shortly at yopreps.com and on the YOPreps app. High school football practice for Class 4A schools, of course, got going on Monday. They finally got into full pads yesterday after kind of a 3-day acclimation period, and they'll go through the next couple of weeks gearing up for the start of the season, which is not until August 30th and 31st. The other 4 classes, 3A, 2A, 9-man, and 6-man, all begin practice on Monday, the 19th. Speaking of football, the Wyoming Cowboys go through a light practice session this morning here in Laramie as they continue fall camp. They've got their second big scrimmage coming up on Saturday. And then the Cowboys, we're just 2 weeks away from their season debut, August 31st at Arizona State. Things are going well, according to head coach Jay Savell. We'll catch an update from him next hour. The Denver Broncos have their second preseason game after they won on the road against the Colts last week. They play the Packers in Denver Sunday. It's a 6 p.m. kickoff down at Invesco Field, Mile High. And then the Rockies will start a brief 3-game homestand as they take on the San Diego Padres tonight. First pitch set for 6:40 at Coors Field in Denver, and that is your sports this hour.
We're already getting into football.
Yes, preseason NFL football actually started a couple weeks ago. So you got high school, college practicing, NFL's in preseason mode. Yep, it is football time.
Where the hell did this year go?
It's racing by. I kind of said the same thing when I was in Casper a couple weeks ago at the state baseball tournament, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's already August.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. You're going to roll into news time after that national local update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. 7:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Friday, and I am so glad you made it.
Today's show is sponsored by the Nihilist Party. Because voting for nothing makes more sense than the options we have.
And, I might just vote Nihilist Party. Up on the 20th now is when we have our primaries here in the state of Wyoming. Now, before I get into the story that I'm about to get to here, just something I saw, and they keep replaying this. It's on the ridiculously large television they put in the studio with me here. It is video at night. What I see is Israel and Gaza and the wall that was built in between them. And what Israel's doing is getting rid of the tunnels that were built underneath. Also tunnels that are inside of the Gaza and so on, just not on the Israeli side. And they're destroying the tunnels. And the video is shot at night of the tunnels being blown up. So while the explosion is primarily happening underground, oh, dear Lord, you got to see this. It's incredible. Because they have enough explosives in there to collapse an entire tunnel system. It really is impressive to watch this. It almost looks like science fiction to watch that happen from above. It's just absolutely amazing. All right, so early in the week I told you about what was happening in the UK. In fact, earlier this morning I told you about censorship in China that happens. You'll be, well, you're very familiar with this. Here in America, if you post something that the social media censors don't like, they either tell you to take it down or flag it, or you can see it, but nobody else can. And that's what was happening in China. In the UK, and in some European nations as well, but mainly in the UK, if you say or post something or share something that is considered offensive, you might just get a visit from the police. They might just drag you down to the police station. Yeah, one guy got dragged down to the police station because of a bumper sticker. He's opposed to illegal immigration. So he had a bumper sticker on his vehicle expressing that opinion, and he was dragged down to the police station. Now, this just means at this point, freedom is dead in the UK. People are standing up. So I just watched something this morning, and I took some time to not just watch it, get a couple of clips out of it. I watched it twice. Rowan Atkinson, best known for his character Mr. Bean, but also is known for many other famous comedic characters, and has made an incredible career of multiple television shows. I loved his Blackadder TV series. That was hysterical. So many great things he's done. What gets me is, when you take a look at Rowan Atkinson, when he's not trying to be funny, is not a goofy-looking guy. He's a rather good-looking guy. It's the way he contorts his face to make the characters that's really funny. He understands people. He understands comedy. He also is a race car driver. You should see his wife. He has a gorgeous wife. Did I mention he was a race car driver, too? He does a lot. He's also a very thoughtful, well-spoken person. I mean, he's a very intelligent man. And he's made a load of money by being funny. He's a very intelligent man. So he wanted to say something because he said this before. He's done this before. When freedom of speech was being attacked in the UK, he made a stand. And he can do it from his position. He is so well known and so well liked. Who dare would oppose him? Kind of like the author of the whole Harry Potter, I keep saying Potter series. She's the same way. She stands up for free speech and all sorts of other rights and dares anyone to try to take her down. And nobody will. She's so rich, she's so famous that the powers that be are afraid to go after her. So since there's a law, in fact, let me go ahead and call this up so I get it right. And Section 5 is what they call it in the UK. Makes it an offense to use threatening or abusive or insulting words or behavior. Now think about how broad that is. This is a law in the UK. Section 5 makes it an offense to use threatening or abusive or insulting words or behavior or disorderly behavior or display any writing, sign, or other visible representation which is threatening, does not define what threatening is, or abusive does not define what abusive is, or insulting. So somebody can just say, I feel insulted by that. Within the hearing or sight of a person likely to be caused harassment, alarm, or distress thereby. That's the law. So you can imagine at that point, anybody can use that against anybody else. That is one of the most poorly written laws in the history of laws. So you can imagine the mess that's causing in the UK as people get arrested for all sorts of things. All somebody has to do is go, I'm offended by that. All right, part one, Rowan Atkinson, in his press conference, as he spoke about this.
Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay. Or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult. Or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen. When I heard of some of these more ludicrous offences and charges, I remembered that I had been here before in a fictional context. I once did a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News some years ago, and we did a sketch where Griff Rhys-Jones played Constable Savage, a manifestly racist police officer to whom I, as his station commander, is giving a dressing down for arresting a black man on a whole string of ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges. The charges Savage arrested Mr. Winston Kadogo of 55 Mercer Road were these. Walking on the cracks in the pavement. Walking in a loud shirt in a built-up area during the hours of darkness. And one of my favourites, walking around all over the place. He was also arrested for urinating in a public convenience and looking at me in a funny way. Who would have thought that we would end up with a law that would allow life to imitate art so exactly?
So, as I read to you the law, some of that would actually happen, because if somebody is looking at you or acting in a way that you deem to be, well, that's threatening, that's offensive, you can go ahead and call the cops on them. And that has actually been done. Now, Mr. Atkinson, part two.
Parliament's Joint Committee on Human Rights summarised, as you may know, this whole issue very well by saying, while arresting a protester for using threatening or abusive speech may, depending on the circumstances, be a proportionate response, we do not think that language or behaviour that is merely insulting should ever be criminalised in this way. The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been, as the examples I talked about earlier show. Although the law under discussion has been on the statute book for over 25 years, it is indicative of a culture that has taken hold of the programs of successive governments, that with the reasonable and well-intentioned ambition to contain obnoxious elements in society, has created a society of an extraordinarily authoritarian and controlling nature.
Does that sound familiar? It is not that bad here in the United States yet, but you can see, well, you know, you're not seeing anyone really arrested for this yet, but you've seen this happen on social media here in the United States. If anyone says or posts something that could be considered to be offensive or obnoxious or whatever the case is. And I've even had Facebook. There was something I had posted on Facebook like 5 years ago. Got multiple comments on it, and nobody said anything about it. And it was just funny. But then Facebook decided that it was offensive, and it wasn't. And so they took it down. And so what I did was I just took off the offensive words, reposted the picture, and asked people, what do you think about the picture? And everybody started making comments which were exactly what the meme was about originally. And so far, Facebook hasn't said a thing about it. But you see, we're heading down a very similar path here in the United States, and we've got to put the brakes on that. Freedom of speech is essential to freedom in general. There's a lot I can say about it, but why should I say it when I have this delightful woman from the UK?
Nobody has the right to live their lives.
I just love her. Nobody has the right to live their lives. Oh, I wish I could do it like she did.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
Oh, God, I wish that was my grandma.
Vaccine passport? Yeah, but I need proof of at least your shots. Okay, AIDS vaccine passport. I'm going to need some allergy tests. Lyme disease. Chickenpox. H1N1. Rabies tag. H1N2. All right, proof of the herpes vaccine. And what about the herpes booster?
I literally got it like 10 minutes ago.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
7:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Friday, 7:23 now. So I was just talking about how in the UK they're arresting people just for having a bumper sticker somebody disagrees with, they consider to be offensive, things that people have said or posted online, be arrested for that. Now, in many cases, the case ends up getting thrown out. It goes to court, but it gets thrown out. But we need a lot more than that. Now, I'm going to bring it back here to Wyoming because there's something that, as far as standing up to stuff like this, it goes to more than just the people standing up. I'm going to go back to the COVID era, when in Wyoming there were mandates like wearing a mask. Let's just focus on the mask mandate. And the first thing was that so many people in Wyoming just said, not going to do it. That was the first part. But it wasn't just people saying, I'm not going to do that. It was also the number of people who said, I'm not going to enforce that. There were district attorneys around the state that said, I'm not, if I get a person in here who was written up and given a ticket for not wearing a mask, I'm not enforcing it because it's unconstitutional. Now, that was district attorneys all over Wyoming. At the same time, there were police chiefs and sheriffs who said, we're not going to write any tickets on that because your government's not allowed to do that. That's unconstitutional. They may have passed that saying, we've written this as a rule or a law or whatever it might be, but they're not allowed to do that, so we're not going to enforce this. And so in the state of Wyoming, there were some people who were masking up, and there were some businesses who said you have to wear a mask here. But as a whole, the state was, compared to other states, it was hardly enforced anywhere at all. To the point that when the Wyoming House and Senate were in session, I had the governor on this program, and we talked about mask mandates, and I asked, do we really have any in Wyoming? I mean, even when you consider at the state capitol in Cheyenne, the only people wearing masks, literally, were Democrats. Nobody else was. And the governor said, well, I guess we really don't. And he wasn't going to enforce it. He didn't want to cause trouble during the legislative session, since the vast majority of people showing up for the session were going to have nothing to do with it. So when it comes to things like freedom of speech and so many other things, it's not just a matter of, I mean, they can pass the law. If government passes a law, they passed it. We can always vote them out and get people in there that will unpass the laws. We can always hope the court will do the right thing, or court system in general will do. And it's sort of hit or miss here in America as to whether the court system will or won't do the right thing. But it's also those people who enforce the laws. They took an oath, and part of that oath is upholding the Constitution, to turn and say, well, if I swore to uphold the Constitution, and let's say government just passed a law that was obviously anti-free speech, anti-First Amendment. To have law enforcement, and I don't just mean cops, I mean prosecutors and so on, turn and say, well, we're just not going to enforce that because you can't do that. Sorry, government, you can't do that. That's in part how we defeat this thing. Just because it was passed by as a rule through the bureaucracy doesn't mean we have to do it. Not if it's unconstitutional. Just because Congress passed a law, they may have passed it, the president may have signed it, but is it constitutional? And that's where the people have the right, and it's not just the citizens, but again, those who would normally enforce the law to turn and say, we're not going to do that because you're not allowed to pass that kind of a law. So, no. Then we can get busy in the next election cycle getting rid of those people who would pass something like this. And it's much more difficult. Difficult enough to get rid of the bad politicians that are out there. It's also very difficult, I think even more so, to get rid of the bureaucracy. Because they're sort of entrenched for as long as they want to work there. They get hired without us electing them. Their job is, they say write rules and regulations. I call them laws. Because they have the same effect as a law. And it's very difficult to get rid of these people once they get entrenched into the bureaucracy. But there's something else that we need to work on. But yeah, that level of resistance is something we need to see. It's nice out of the story I just gave you about freedom of speech in the UK. It is nice to see, at least this is a small something in the right direction. It's not solving the problem, but it's a little something in the right direction. When someone does get arrested because they spoke their mind and somebody was, verklempt about it, and so they got arrested. And then it does go to court. And in most cases, the vast majority of cases, the judge just throws it out. And the person goes home. Now, what they need to fix is ever getting arrested in the first place over something like that. And also repealing the law. And then going after the politicians who would ever pass such a law. And if you were listening a little while ago when I read the whole thing, so poorly written. I was reading this thing out loud going, are you kidding me? Who wrote this? Because it is so poorly written, so vague. All right, coming up on some local news we got to take care of after local news update on the weather forecast. Then you and I get back into it again with another section of open phones. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Then at 7:45, day weather with a live look at weather all the way through into this weekend, which, spoiler alert, is going to be a little bit warmer and a little bit drier, but more seasonal, not horrible for this time of year about what you're used to. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Polish off that tin hat. You'll need it for this one. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Available on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
7:36 the time. Okay, I'm here. I'm usually back a little bit quicker than that, but Miss Mary just walked in. She was very nice to go out and get it. She wanted to get us some breakfast burritos and stuff, and I'm already full up, but she did get me a really nice cup of really, really good coffee. And to me, just a side note here, good coffee is the strong stuff, the bold, the dark roast. That's what I like, with nothing in it. I don't sweeten it up, anything like that. So that to me is just really good, bold coffee. All right, here in Wyoming, this according to Wildfile, as candidates spend big, one out-of-state group has injected about $370,000 into Wyoming primaries. Now, this is something, before I get into the story, that I hear about all the time. A lot of Wyomingites don't like out-of-state money coming in and messing with our politics. Now, I can look at different sides of it. I'm just going to toss out every side before I tell you what I think. I do understand from the candidates that are saying, in order for me to run a proper campaign, there's not enough money in Wyoming to allow me to campaign all over Wyoming. So I have to reach outside of Wyoming. I can get that. And I can even understand out-of-state interests that are looking at more of a national campaign. They've raised a bunch of money and they want to win nationally. So they go looking for candidates that could use money that are on their side of the argument. Doesn't matter what state they're in. So they donate that. Now, the story says Wyoming campaign costs are soaring as two factions of the Wyoming Republican Party for control of the State House. Now, this is, to me, is also very interesting because the two sides of the Republican Party, I've been asking, where are the Democrats this time around? Where are they? There's not a lot of Democrats running for office this time around in Wyoming, and those that are running are not making a whole lot of noise. In the meantime, the Republican Party has split into a couple of different factions. And I know some of you will say, well, it's basically the rhinos against the true Republicans. And you can make a case for that or not. You know, it's a more moderate Republicans, if you want to even say that, against the more hardcore conservative Republicans. However you want to go ahead and word that. The Republican Party is battling itself, and the Democrats have barely showed up this year. The story says legislative hopefuls, competitive races, already spent tens of thousands of dollars leading up to Tuesday's primary. According to a recent filing, in some instances, though, their campaigns are facing stiff competition, significant help from federal political action committees that are now required to report spending in Wyoming. That includes a Virginia-based Make Liberty Win, which has spent about $370,000 both in support and attacking some politicals. Some of the mailers have spread misinformation, including wrong voting dates and early voting. So you got to be careful. And let me just put it to you this way. I do know for a fact there are some things that you've gotten in the mail, or some of you have gotten in the mail, that sounds pretty damning of some politicians out there, and it's garbage. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, back when I had a wood stove and a fireplace, that's where those mailers would go. All right. But I don't, even today, I don't have a wood stove and a fireplace, but I just take that stuff and I just throw it out. I don't pay attention to mailers because a lot of it is just exactly that. It's garbage, a waste of paper. Story says in 2023, lawmakers passed Senate File 40, the Federal Political Action Committee reports, which requires federal PAC spending money on state and local races to report those expenditures to the Secretary of State. Quote, national PACs that engage in federal races must file reports with the Federal Election Commission, but as of 2023, there are no parallel requirements for them to file at a state level when engaging in state races, according to the Equity State Policy Center. So my thought on this, I like the idea everybody should go ahead and report, absolutely. Now, I really don't mind out-of-state money in a couple of ways. Like let's just say, for example, your Republican Party wants to make sure that Republicans win nationwide. And there's a candidate in Wyoming that they would like to see win, but the guy's kind of struggling, needing to make some money, and there's not enough money in Wyoming. What do you think then? As opposed to some out-of-state special interest group which would like to have some control over that politician, that's a completely different story. So for me, a lot of it is a matter of where does that money come from, if it is coming from out of state. That's why I'd like to see it reported. Go ahead, donate it if you want to donate it. It's a free country. If you want to donate, even from out of state. But let everybody see it so we can all decide whether we thought that donation was coming from somebody worthy of us or someone that we would rather have nothing to do with. And we can make that decision by looking at where they're getting the money from. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
If I manage to make it through this week, I would like my straight jacket to be black leather and my helmet to sparkle. Thank you.
News and weather together at the top and bottom of every hour. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to day weather to talk to Don. What's all about the weekend? Now, Don, we talked about this. Everything was just beautiful until we get to Saturday, the day that we want to be outside, and suddenly you spike the temperatures on us.
Well, It is still August, and summer, of course, we're in that time of year where summer is really going to keep a tight grip on things, or going to try to anyway, because it knows that fall's coming, and it's going to hold on as long as it can.
Yeah, okay. So, it's got to go ahead and give one last push before it gets out of here. Now, I did notice last night that across the state of Wyoming, some people were lucky enough to get overnight showers, but I guess we're done for just a few days.
Yeah, the southeast areas around the capital city, north of Cheyenne along I-25. Little wave came through during the night to drop some rain showers, little thunder as well. Little light return still trying to show up on the radar along I-80 near the Laramie Valley, but I think the heaviest activity is moving itself out of here. Still could see maybe some higher elevation thunderstorms this afternoon, the gusty kind, if you will. And, once we get past today, I think it'll shut off for about 36 hours.
Okay. And as far as the warmer temperatures and the drierness here, how much do we have to go through? Sometime in next week, I think temperatures drop back down again, right?
Not too much, really. Okay. As that high-pressure ridge sets up in the Central Plains, it's really going to drive a lot of warm air from the southwest. Now, occasionally there will be a little monsoon moisture to come along with it. Might start the week Sunday and Monday with some scattered showers and thunderstorms. It'll kind of wane a little bit Tuesday and a Wednesday, and then maybe pick up again into Thursday. But, I think the one constant is we're going to see widespread 80s and even some 90s for, I would say, much of next week.
Now, here, a very different question for you. So I'll get on at times on websites or the app and take a look at weather radar. And I know we really don't have any weather radar in Wyoming. It's more like it comes in from other states, and the map just sort of puts it all together. There's times I'm noticing, I'm looking, oh, look, there's a rain shower, and it passes right over my head, but it doesn't rain. So I'm thinking that radar's got to be tilted high enough that it's picking up something, but not something that's getting to the ground.
If the radar is looking high enough in the atmosphere, it senses that there could be some potential rainfall coming. Yeah. It really depends on what the low levels look like. If the air is too dry in the lower levels, it'll evaporate before it actually hits the ground. So sometimes that's what we get. It's called virga, rain falling but disappearing and evaporating before it can actually have an impact.
All right. Hey, Don, have a great weekend.
You too, Glenn.
All right, so there's Don Watzel for day weather. I was just curious about that question I wanted to ask. Because there's times I'm looking at, oh, look, there's rain coming, and we don't get any, even though it's right there on the radar. I think, well, it's got to be because they pointed that thing high. So off we go to Laramie to talk to David Settle. Okay, did you ever watch the movie Poltergeist?
Oh, gosh, it's been a long time.
Okay. So if you think about, I'm going to tax your memory on this. You think about the house that was used when they showed you the exterior of the house.
Okay.
And that's actually a house in a real-life neighborhood. They just went and took some exterior shots of it, and I think part of the scene at the end of the movie was shot right out in front of that house. Okay. That house is for sale.
Well, good for somebody who wants to buy it. Not me.
It wasn't a real haunting.
Sure.
Okay, but that's enough for you, huh? Okay.
I'm not touching that. What's the good old, oh gosh, what's the line from, I can't think of it right now, but I'm not touching it with like a 39.5 foot pole.
So, okay. I think the song you're talking about is the Grinch.
It's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Right, yeah. Okay, so
it.
now, the house is selling for $1.2 million.
Oh, wow.
But I'm thinking now there's two trains of thoughts on this. On the one hand, you want to spend that much money because it was in a famous movie. On the other hand, you want a discount because of what that movie was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So what it says is like the real cost like $2.3 million? And
something like that. Yeah, no, it's $1.2 million is the asking price for the house.
Yeah.
So
then you negotiate and try and get it down to $1 or $900,000.
If I were the realtor, I would say if you can prove a real poltergeist, I'll go ahead and knock that price down. How about that?
All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Good morning, everybody. It's a Friday. The Cowboy football team has a little light practice. They'll kind of go in half pads today before they have their second scrimmage of fall camp. Head coach Jay Savell said after Thursday's practice that fundamentally some things looked better after the Cowboys actually had a day off, and now they're preparing for that scrimmage on Saturday.
We've got a lot of work to do still in the 2 weeks plus before we play a really quality opponent. And so, Saturday scrimmage, it's positional based, where some positions you've got players that need a lot of work, and some positions you got players that need just a little bit of work. And we've got a lot of stuff that we got to get done on Saturday, and so looking forward to that.
The Cowboys scrimmage on Saturday is closed. We're just over 2 weeks away from the start of the 2024 Cowboy football season at Arizona State. That is an 8:30 p.m. kickoff Mountain Time on Saturday, August 31st. And Cody Tucker's got some more insight on what's going on with the Cowboys in fall camp at 7220sports.com and on the 7220sports.com app. Sounds like the surgery with running back Harrison Whaley went well on Wednesday. And Jay Savell said it didn't look good initially, but early indications was it's not a season-ending setback, and that's still the case. And surgery went well, so hopefully he'll recover sooner than later. The Wyoming Cowgirl soccer season got underway last night, and they played to a scoreless draw at Washington. Most of the shots from both teams took in the second half. Each team had 15 shots, but neither could get past the goalkeeper, so they played to a scoreless draw. The Cowgirls have now earned a tie against their last two Power 4 opponents as they drew against Louisville last year. Wyoming remains on the road next week. They'll be at Colorado on August 22nd for a 7 p.m. matchup at Printup Field down in Boulder. At the high school level, golf season underway. Green River wraps up a 2-day invitational today. Douglas wrapped up their invite on Thursday. Maddie Brace of Douglas rallied and won on her home course by 5 shots over a teammate. Tate Nichols of Wheatland won by 6 shots for the boys medalist position, also over a teammate. And those two led their respective teams, the Douglas girls and Wheatland boys, to the team titles. And then you also had action up in Powell, and Glenrock hosted a JV invite. The tennis season starts tomorrow. There's only a few duels in a couple places. Most teams will start next week. Casper, Natrone, and Kelly Walsh will host a couple other teams for a little round-robin event where they'll do some pro sets, but it really doesn't factor into actual season results. And so the bulk of the competition starts next week. Casper schools will be in Laramie for dual competition coming up on Monday the 19th. And we'll have the scoreboard out a little bit later on this morning at wyopreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. On the regional scene, the Denver Broncos have their second preseason game as they host the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night, 6 p.m. kickoff down in Denver. And the Rockies, after a day off Thursday, will host the San Diego Padres for a 3-game weekend series. First pitch of Game 1 tonight, 6:40 at Coors Field in Denver. That is your sports this hour.
Since you brought up the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, in the original Grinch cartoon that we all remember as kids, do you know who played the voice of the Grinch? Or actually, pardon me, the narrator, and who sang the song, "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch"?
Yeah, it's Theodore. Can't think of his last name right off the top of my head, but I love that movie.
And also starring as the Grinch, Bela Lugosi.
Yes, Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, I mean, what a voice that was too, right?
Yeah.
All right. At least you know you're Grinch. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Dave. Coming up on some local business news time. Open phones. Wake Up Wyoming. 8:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Friday, and I'm glad you made it.
Today's show is sponsored by the Nihilist Party, because voting for nothing makes more sense than the options we have.
On Tuesday's primary election and during the general election, I got to remember to play that one.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Now, I got to admit, I'm really ashamed of this. I had the right, for the record, Miss Mary, I had the right face when I said this, but I said the wrong name. So I was talking with Dave from Laramie, who does filling in for Frank doing sports, and he brought up, I wouldn't touch that with a 39 or whatever and a half foot pole, which he was quoting the Grinch from When the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I brought up who played the Grinch in the original cartoon. And I pride myself on knowing Halloween-y stuff because I was born just moments before Halloween, and I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. Not the Freddy Krueger slasher stuff, nothing like that, no. More like the Nightmare Before Christmas kind of stuff. I just love spooky Halloween fun. So, I had said that Bela Lugosi had played the Grinch. And I was wrong. Now, I did have, in my defense, I was thinking of the face of Boris Karloff. But I said Bela Lugosi. I got that absolutely wrong. And when Miss Mary let me know that Earl called the show to correct me, I just told her how absolutely ashamed I was that I got that wrong. Because that is a Halloween thing. Again, me being so versed on this, what I think is just a wonderfully fun holiday. I can't believe I got that wrong. Mike is in Laramie. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Glenn. I'm listening to you talk about the UK problems, and at least I was glad to hear you mention that people are starting to push back.
Yeah.
But here's a few things people don't know about the legal system there.
Right.
The UK does not have a written constitution as we do. They don't have a Bill of Rights with First Amendment.
Yeah.
Their whole legal system is based on customs and tradition that go all the way back to the Anglo-Saxon, which gave us such things as jury trials and innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
But they don't have a constitution where you can go to court and say, you're violating my constitutional right.
Yeah.
And they don't have the checks and balances that we have either. The king can't veto legislation coming out of Parliament.
Right.
He just rubber stamps it. And the House of Lords can't really veto anything coming out of the House of Commons. They can conference and try and work out a compromise. But unlike the Senate here that can kill House legislation, you can't do that in the UK.
Right. One of the great things about America being a republic, and this is why we often have the discussion, we're not a direct democracy, we're a constitutional republic. And that protects the citizen. So what that means is when anybody violates, including government, comes along and violates your freedom of speech, you can turn and say, sorry, you wrote a law saying what? You're not allowed to write that law. And it's done. I don't care if the entire Congress voted unanimously on it and the president signed it. That doesn't mean a damn thing if the Constitution says they can't.
Yeah, but you don't have that. You don't have that protection in Britain.
Yeah.
And on the continent, it's even worse, Glenn.
Yeah.
The continent, Europe, most of Europe's laws are based on the old Code Napoleon. If you ever notice, there are no jury trials on the continent. You go before a tribunal of several judges.
Yeah.
But you don't have a jury of your peers. And the worst part about continental European law is that you are guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
Unlike here, where we are innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. And they also wear those funny, stupid-looking wigs that they have to get rid of. They just look ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, but it's, like I said, a lot of British law is all custom and tradition.
Yeah.
And what documents have come out, like the Magna Carta, have all been to restrict the monarchy, but not to restrict the Parliament.
Right.
Parliament's gotten more and more powerful, and I mean, the king can't. If the King Charles sees a piece of ugly legislation, he can't say no. He just has to say the king wants it. And that's it.
Well, and then you got to think, even just recently in the European Union, on the one hand, the more conservative thinkers, the more liberty, freedom-minded thinkers, were very excited to see a lot of conservatives were voted in various countries around the EU. Unfortunately, the way they put their governments together, all the opposition had to do was form a coalition government to override all of that.
Yeah, that's the problem with the parliamentary system instead of our congressional system.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's maybe the one thing to fear is I heard many decades ago from one of my history teachers was, we talk in this country, as goes California, so goes the rest of the country. Mm. Well, he mentioned as goes in the UK, as goes the U.S.
Yeah, often done. Well, that's why sometimes you hear me saying it just happened in the UK or it just happened in the EU, and there's liberals over here watching that and just salivating, thinking we should do that over here because they are more enlightened than us, and so we should do that over here, even though it's failing miserably over there.
Over there. That's true, but it's a good thing we have that written constitution.
Right.
That's that one piece of paper.
Yeah.
That gives us the protections we need. But in a lot of other countries, you don't have it.
Right. And for that matter, and this is something that I love having fun with some really liberal-minded Democrats in this one. They keep saying that our Supreme Court currently is way out of control. Even Biden was saying that. And how do you figure that when many of the most important constitutional issues of the past couple of years were voted on 9-0, meaning even the most liberal of justices on the Supreme Court agreed with the conservatives when it came to the constitutionality of it. But they can't seem to explain that.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
But just what you'd like to know about, the problem in the UK, they can't point to a piece of paper and say
those are my rights.
You're violating my rights.
All right, that's a great point.
Right.
Thank you for calling in, Mike. That was a great call. I really appreciate it. If you're missing it, I played some really good audio in the second hour of the program. Yeah, okay. Just making sure where I am. That came from people like Rowan Atkinson, who played Mr. Bean, among other great roles and so on. And people in the UK that are fighting back because now you can get arrested just for saying something or even acting in such a way that offends somebody else. And so there's people fighting back against that, which is good to see. That's where we're having that conversation. Now, if you missed that part of the program, don't forget this show, Wake Up Wyoming, is a podcast when I get done. So here's what happens. Right now, the program that you're listening to is on multiple radio stations around Wyoming and heard around the region. And I like to tell people from the Montana border down past Denver and just as wide. It's a huge area. And then you would really be amazed to see how many people are not listening off of radio, but are listening off of their phones because it's broadcast, if you will. And so you can just click the Wake Up Wyoming app, just hit listen live, and there it is. So a lot of people listen off their phones. Now, for those people who say, I was busy and I didn't get a chance to hear it, that's okay. This is something that's free when you download the Wake Up Wyoming app. It's free. Just go to your app store, Wake Up Wyoming. And when the app opens up, you'll see a toolbar across the middle. On the left-hand side, touch On Demand, touch Wake Up Wyoming, and select the episode you want to listen to. That's it. And then we condense it. We get rid of news, sports, weather, most of the commercials, condensing it down so it's not an entire 4-hour program. Now you can listen to the whole thing. Start it, stop it, rewind it, share it, whatever you want to do. So if you missed something that was a really good conversation in the 7 o'clock hour that Mike was talking about, you can go back later today and just catch up on it. 888-97 Woods is the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. It is open phones. Wake Up Wyoming.
And we're back. Sorry, we were busy tricking pescatarians into eating Rocky Mountain oysters. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Are you or someone you know experiencing a speech, language, or swallowing disorder? An ASHA-certified speech-language pathologist can help. Visit us at asha.org/public.
I'm so happy to be here, yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still I know the world's on fire, the situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but I'm just happy to be here.
So let's take a look real quick here at Kamala Harris. She's coming up with this new plan to deal with inflation because she's been saying for quite a while now, I'm going to handle inflation. Okay, great. How? What are you doing? Okay, story in front of me says Vice President, presumptive Democrat presidential nominee Harris, talking points for price gouging. That's one of the things she said when it comes to the food industry. Well, I know when you go to the grocery store, prices have been high. I get it. They have been. But the food industry has actually been making less money. And that's because of inflation. That's in a lot of ways inflation, but also the high cost of fuel, just distributing the food, but in so many, and creating the food, but in so many ways, yeah, the prices have gone up, and food manufacturers are not price gouging. They're actually making less of a margin than they were just a few years ago. But her idea is, well, you just tell them you can't charge any more than this. Well, there's problems with that as we take a look at what happens historically, because even going back to the Republican Party, Richard Nixon tried price controls. Inflation was a bit out of control, and he said, that's it, we're holding prices here. And what we ended up with is businesses going out of business, and we had shortages, too. It doesn't work. It's the worst thing you can possibly do to get a hold of prices that are going out of control. If you really want to get a hold of prices going out of control, you don't turn to those people who are manufacturing or selling and say you're not allowed to charge anymore. And they can charge whatever they want. It's supposed to be a free market, so they can charge whatever they want to charge. Usually in a free market, what happens is people try to charge as little as possible. Okay. They do that in order to beat the competition. If there is no competition, they can charge whatever they want. All right. So you don't want price control. Instead, one of the best ways to bring prices down is deregulation of the government. Let's go back to George W. Bush when Hurricane Katrina slammed in right through New Orleans and some other towns, right up through Louisiana. And it took a couple of oil refineries offline. And because of that, and those oil refineries were repaired and put back online. But while they were down, you know, supply and demand. And so gasoline prices went way up. Suddenly, gasoline prices really spiked hard. And that wasn't just going to affect people trying to go to work and back. That would affect everything. Everything. That would cause inflation across the board because we need fuel, right? Okay. And it's not just gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, things like that. So, okay, what George W. did was the smart thing. He was acting more like a capitalist. Instead, what he did is he said, look, we have rules and regulations for gasoline. A lot of them. Not only do we have federal rules, but we have regional, state rules, and even sometimes local government, city governments, county governments have rules as well, which is why those manufacturing gasoline, if you will, refining it, will have to charge different prices for different areas because they have to make customized gas. If you wonder why is the gasoline in California so expensive, look at all the rules and regulations. Yeah, so there's customized gas for every single city, county, state, and federal is part of what drives your prices so high. It's not the only thing, but it's part of it. So what George W. did is said, okay, for the next 6 months or so, everybody that refines gasoline, refines oil into gasoline, is going to do the exact same process. Nobody in the country, nobody, I don't care where you are, city, county, state, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to get customized gas. We're all going to get the same thing. Now, that makes refining it so much easier, getting rid of those regulations. They don't have to do special things for special areas. They just make the same thing and send it out. That made gasoline really cheap. And the price plummeted. Now, that stayed down like that, and the deregulation stayed in effect until those refineries got back online. And once they got back online, the regulations came back in. All right. Unfortunately, But think about that. George W. Bush did the right thing, not in telling oil companies, well, you're gouging and you're not allowed to charge. No, that would not have made any sense. That would have just completely screwed the whole process. We would have wound up worse off. But he actually understood basic economics. And since he was in the oil industry, he understood the oil industry. And so he lowered prices through deregulation, getting government out of the way. Now, we can do the same thing when it comes to inflation in America. Inflation has cooled off quite a bit, but it's still inflating. Prices are still too high. So how do you lower them? Well, a lot of the reason why is, just take a look what the Biden administration has done with energy in this country. But it's not just that. It's all sorts of other rules and regulations they've thrown in. And that has inflated prices. So if we get a lot of government out of the mix, not just on the federal level, but in many cases on the local level, the more we can back off and let the market do what it does, the cheaper it is to produce things. The cheaper it is to produce things, because we have competition, the cheaper things will be at the stores. That's how you solve this. It has been tried not just in America multiple times, but in other countries as well. Well, we're just going to freeze prices, or we're going to artificially lower prices. That'll fix it. No. We wind up with an economic disaster every single time. And people like Kamala Harris never learn from history. Shows they have no idea how economics work, and they've never learned from history. But then again, those people who've never studied history are doomed to repeat it, right? Here's a primary example of that. Jeff in Guernsey. Morning, Jeff. Good morning, sir. He called me sir. Jeff Thomas, I'm running for House District 4. If you have any questions before Tuesday, please feel free. I tell you what, Jeff, if you would, call Miss Mary, 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. If she has space in our schedule, maybe we can get you on. Not today, but maybe Monday, Tuesday. If she has a space in here, we'll get you on the air. Coming up on local news, update on the weather forecast. Well, I'm letting people from politicians from everywhere call into the program and give you their quick pitch before you go vote. And Tuesday's the deadline for that. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio. Join the show at 888-97-WOODS.
8:36 at the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, 888-97-WOODS the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject, fine by me. I'll just kind of roll with the whole thing. So this is not going to be surprising to you at all. Headline here, college students lack rudimentary knowledge of history and civics. Well, yeah, I know. These are the ones who graduate not just high school. They should have learned this in middle school. But they didn't, and they didn't learn this in high school. And they went on to college not knowing that America is a constitutional republic and what that means. They also have no concept of capitalism, but neither do their high school teachers or college professors. So no wonder. The story here says college students lack a rudimentary grasp of American history and government. And worse yet, the history books have been altered these days as well. We can get into that at another time, but you understand. As displayed in Civics Literacy Assessment recently, conducted by the American Council of Trustees and Alumni, a 35-question survey, Losing America's Memory 2.0, asked more than 3,000 students from 50 states questions about history, government, including Senate terms, and quotes from the Gettysburg Address, and et cetera, et cetera. They did miserable. It seems this is a quote, it seems that many students are completely tuned out of politics, lacking the knowledge to participate effectively. That one of the reasons why I say when people would like to reduce the voting age all the way down to like 16 or so, I would say no. No, they are absolutely not ready for this yet. And a lot of it, I understand part of it's because they're young, and I completely get that. But it's also because they didn't really learn any of this when they were in middle school or high school, and worst of all, college. They have no idea. Off we go to the phones. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. Hey, Jude.
Hey, I just had a question real quick. Have you heard anything on the decision on the abortion issue?
Not yet, no.
No. Do you know when it's expected to come down?
No, I don't either. That I've seen various articles, and all they say is soon, but I don't know what soon means. So, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that, every day it's probably another 10 babies.
Okay.
Dying, so she needs to get her decisions done. So, anyway,
okay.
You have a good weekend. That's all I want.
All right, you too. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate it. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. No, and you can do what she just did. Just interrupt me and change the subject. That's fine. I don't know when that is going to come down as a decision here in the state of Wyoming. Okay, so the story here says, it seems that many students are completely tuned out of politics and lacking knowledge to participate effectively. When asked who is the current president, only 27% of students were able to correctly identify. Some even said Kamala Harris was president and not Joe Biden. Yeah, but then again, that in part I can say, well, but they're young, so they're not paying attention. But that's not primarily what I'm talking about. How does this country operate and why? So many students were unaware of the 6-year length of the U.S. Senate term. Almost a third, 31%, thought it was a 4-year term. Likewise, nearly a fifth, 19%, incorrectly said representatives to the U.S. House serve a 4-year term. They serve 2. They also said they were particularly concerned by another finding. Only 23% of students could identify the Gettysburg Address as a source quote, government of the people, by the people, for the people. And then here's a quote. If the people no longer care to understand their government, if they are ignorant of its history and institutions, a government like ours cannot stand, according to America's founders. But you see, I don't think it's because people lack the interest. They were never taught this in school properly. Now, even when I was really young, I took an interest in learning about government when I was in school. I remember that in middle school and high school. I took some interest in it. However, I was still young at the time, too. So while I was interested in learning about it, I really wasn't all that involved in it at the time because I was young, and I get that. But still, to have an understanding of how we became a nation and why we have the Constitution that we do. We are not a direct democracy. We are, you could say, Democratic Republic or Constitutional Republic, and what that means. What a free market means. Okay. Additionally, 37% of students correctly identified the current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but 32% responded that they were not sure. And I can, again, understand who's your current Supreme... Ask a teenager who the mayor is of his town, if he lives in a town, because I know a lot of kids in Wyoming don't necessarily live in a town. But who's your mayor? Who's your governor? Historian of Hillsdale College professor said in a recent email he was both appalled and saddened by the findings of the survey that found that 57% of students would flee the country rather than stay and fight for the country. This, he says, reflects a social malady, a sickness of the soul, and runs deeper than a lack of knowledge. Well, that's true. Now, as for adults, this is why every couple of years, you know where I'm going with this if you're a regular to the program, I have the Stay Out the Vote campaign. Not the Get Out the Vote campaign, but a Stay Out the Vote campaign for those who get to adulthood and they're still not engaged because they just can't be bothered.
Darling, would you fetch me a beer on the fridge?
So, I know everything about the Kardashians, Beyonce, and stuff like that. But I know nothing about who my governor is or whoever runs the state. So this year I'm doing my patriotic duty and stay out the vote.
Thank you, darling. I can give you every major stat for the Rockies for the last 15 years, but I can't tell you who the mayor of Denver is. That's the reason why this year I'm doing my patriotic duty and stay out the vote.
Too lazy to stay informed? Then stay home. Stay out the vote. Your country is counting on you.
Now, one side note, I did listen to a discussion which I thought was actually a really good one, and it had to do with those people who haven't made up their minds yet as to who to vote for president. And many of you listening right now were going, what the hell? How could you not possibly? Because you know what you're going to do already. Or who you're going to vote for your senator. If you're listening to talk radio on a regular basis, you're pretty much engaged. And you know what's going on and who's who, and you probably already have figured out who you're going to vote for and why. But there are those people, as adults, they really don't pay attention to politics. They don't care. It's annoying to them. They want to get on with their lives. And they really don't start paying attention until we get close to election time. That's when they finally start to tune in, which is why we call them the low information voter, because at that point they show up having no idea what's going on. And yet they're going to grab a ballot, and they don't know most of what's on the ballot, and they're going to make a decision. They want their right to vote, and they want to exercise it, and I get that. But because they stay disengaged for so long and tune in at the last minute, they have no idea. And so if you ask them, you're going to vote for Trump or Harris? Oh, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. And you might wonder, how can you be that way? Because they don't pay attention most of the time, because it's annoying to them. To those people, I would say, do not tune into, like, your major radio, some of your major radio shows, but also CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. Stay away from that. And stay away from political pundits of all sorts of different ilks and so on. And go searching for real information. And stay somewhat engaged all the time as to what the real issues are and what's real going on. That way, when it does come time to vote, at least you are making good decisions as an informed voter, not someone who pays attention a few days before election time and calling that good.
Hello, everybody. We are going to die in about 30.1 seconds, so brace for impact. Bye. Mwahahaha.
You're listening to the radio.
Take Glenn anywhere with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:49 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to Laramie to talk to David Settle about sports. So, Dave, I've often pitched this idea, pun intended, to Frank, but I don't know if I've ever gotten your reaction to it or not. I think as we wrap up baseball season, we take the two worst teams, and we all know who they are, and we have them together for one final game to find out who sucks the most.
Well, technically, they already played this year, and it would be the Rockies because they lost to the White Sox.
Wow. Okay.
They either and the White Sox are having a record bad season right now.
Yeah.
I am not kidding you either. It has been brutal in terms of how bad they are. They're on pace for like a major league record for losses.
Here's how I think that the networks and the teams make a ton of money off of this. First off, they take the biggest stadium out there because we're going to pack the place. Mm-hmm. We go ahead and pretty much just give away tickets because we're going to make money on all of the different concessions out there. This is a beer and hot dogs kind of game, right? And also, we get commentators who are just willing to rip into both teams. Yeah, and boy, that's going to sound great, isn't it? So if you're at home watching on television, imagine the ratings for that as the commentator. And then off to the side of that, we have a social media site where while the game is being played, anybody can just go ahead and drop their comments during the course of the game. That's going to be brutal.
Yeah, it would be.
Now imagine how much money we can make off of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Oh,
okay. I got your reaction.
Very true. Very, very true. Very, very true. All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Let's talk some high school sports. Golf season underway at the high school level here in the Cowboy State. It's a short 6-week season. And when I mean short, they've got this week and then 5 more weeks, and then they're done by middle of September because the state championships are the 20th and 21st. Douglas on Thursday wrapped up their 2-day invite, and Maddie Brace of Douglas High School rallied and won on her home course, and she beat a teammate by 5 shots. Tate Nichols of Wheatland went wire to wire and won by 6 shots for the boys medalist honor over a teammate, and those two helped their respective teams, the Douglas girls and Wheatland boys, win the team titles. Glen Rock had a JV invite, and then also Green River started a 2-day invite yesterday that finishes up today. Powell also had a invite that was supposed to be Wednesday, Thursday, but weather wiped them out on Wednesday, so they got reduced down to just a 1-day invite. Our Athlete of the Year honors have been announced at WyoPreps.com for softball and American Legion baseball. The softball honoree went to Thunder Basin catcher Natalie Clont. She had a fantastic season, helping the Bolts win a 3rd straight state championship. And our Athlete of the Year for Legion baseball was Powell's Brock Johnson. He was the single-A Player of the Year and Pitcher of the Year, as voted on by the coaches. Had some fantastical stats. And he's going off to college and will play at the next level. And Brock Johnson earning our WyoPreps Athlete of the Year for Legion Baseball. You can check out both their video interviews at WyoPreps.com and on the WyoPreps app. In football news, the Wyoming Cowboys have a light practice today in fall camp in Laramie before they have a major scrimmage coming up on Saturday. Head coach Jay Savell said Thursday, fundamentally, some things looked better coming off Wednesday's off day, but he said, that's just kind of where we're at in camp. Some things look better than others, but as far as looking ahead,
we've got a lot of work to do still in the 2 weeks plus before we play a really quality opponent. And so Saturday scrimmage, it's positional based, where some positions you've got players that need a lot of work, and some positions you got players that need just a little bit of work. And we've got a lot of stuff that we got to get done on Saturday, and so looking forward to that.
Savell said, I'll give a comparison, and he said, a safety like Isaac White, I've seen him play 2,000 snaps. I don't need a lot of work from him, but a guy like Evan Svoboda, the new starting quarterback, he hasn't played as much, so he needs a little bit more work. And so he gave that type of comparison in terms of what he's saying there for Saturday's scrimmage, which will be closed. Cowboys 2 weeks away from their opener August 31st at Arizona State. Cowgirls soccer played to a scoreless draw on their season debut yesterday at Washington up at Husky Stadium. Both teams had 15 shots. The majority of those came in the second half of action. Cowgirls will be back in action on August 22nd. That's next Thursday at Colorado. The Denver Broncos have their second preseason game on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, 6 o'clock start. And then the Rockies, after a day off yesterday, take on the Padres 1-3 tonight at Coors Field in Denver at 6:40 first pitch. And we mentioned, Glenn, how bad the Rockies are. They have 44 wins, but the White Sox are 29-93. They could have 100 losses before we hit the end of the month.
Oh, God. So,
they are really bad. But they did beat the Rockies earlier this year twice.
Okay. For those people who are waiting for the, our Cowboys to get out, practice tailgating. Now's your chance. Get out there this weekend and practice tailgating. You're going to want to be good at this in time for the game. Practice makes perfect, Dave. Let's wake up, Wyoming. Six the time. Let's wake up, Wyoming. It's a Friday, and I'm glad you made it. A couple of guests in the studio that we have today, and I'm going to love doing this. Amy and Jamie. That's just brilliant. We need to have more. It sounds like an act that I'm going to have on the air right now.
Right.
But instead, we're dealing with Meals on Wheels, and then the Senior Center, which is in the Casper, Natrona County area. Should I say that?
Absolutely.
Do you serve more than outside of the Natrona area, or do you just put Mason?
Natrona County only.
Natrona County only. Okay. And the reason you ladies asked to come in is on occasion we've gotten some calls with some concerns, mostly about the funding of where the Senior Center funding comes from, but also what the Senior Center does. Mm-hmm. So you wanted to set the record for that. And I have a rule that I made for this program. If we talk about you, you get to respond.
Perfect.
So first off, I know you brought a lot in with you, but let's explain to people what exactly the Senior Center does.
The Senior Center, first of all, I think a lot of people don't know, is mandated by the state of Wyoming, which is mandated by the Older Americans Act.
Okay.
At the federal level.
Right.
Okay. So that makes us a little, even in Meals on Wheels, a little different than a traditional nonprofit or special interest.
Right.
The Senior Center, we provide services beginning from 1975 every city has a senior center, because we provide proven services that keep our older folks in their homes as long as possible, which is a benefit to all of us.
Right.
Because if we don't, and they are prematurely institutionalized, many of them on Medicaid, that's going to come back to us.
Really expensive. Okay.
Yes.
Now, right away, that changes a bit of the dynamic there, because a lot of people, when they hear senior center, and I've thought about the same thing too. Oh, so this is where they go to play. This is like a place where they can go have a good time and get together with their friends and things like that.
Sure,
and so they think, well, who's funding that? I mean, why don't they just take care of them? And I would think the same thing. Why don't they take care of that themselves?
Exactly.
But you're talking about services for people that are mandated who need a little bit of help.
Yes.
Okay.
And some of the things we do, yes, we provide a congregate meal. The reason we provide a congregate meal is we're taking care of the people that can still move, because we want them to keep moving. Yeah. Many of those people, it's the only meal they get. And Jamie takes care of the people that are homebound.
Okay.
And that's many times the only meal they get. Our funding comes from the same source, starting at the federal level with the Older Americans Act, and then filters down through the Wyoming Department of Health Aging Division.
Okay.
She is a C2. We are C1. At the Senior Center, we also, we have some games, but these games are triggered to keep their brains going and thinking. But we also have exercise that keeps them moving. Mm-hmm. Our chair exercise, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 10, is going to grow out of the building. Last week we had 70 people in that chair exercise class, because they're all seeing the benefit of it. People are feeling better, less pain, they're moving more. And if that's the whole ticket, is to keep people moving. But we also have some of our folks, Jamie and I see some of the same people, because we also go into homes and take care of the things that fall apart for them in their homes, such as housekeeping, meal prep, personal cares. We can help them make sure they're paying their bills. Helping hand for a while. I have many homemakers and a few CNAs that do these things for them. Those are the things that fall apart where they end up having to go into a nursing home. And we all know there's no beds in Casper.
No, there's not. And a couple of things on this. First off, I home cared my dad through Alzheimer's for 6 years. And growing up in Florida as I did, I can tell you, it's not just if you stop using your body, you're done. Mm-hmm. But if you stop using your brain, you're done.
Absolutely.
And pretty soon. So you got to keep all of those active. But also, and this is not just for the senior center, but for Meals on Wheels, because we have a mutual friend down in Cheyenne who takes care of this. Yeah. The Rihanna brand. Yeah. The number of volunteers that you have, which certainly helps the cost, but doesn't make it nothing.
No, absolutely not. We have 420 active volunteers. In Natrona County. We deliver to the towns in Midwest and Edgerton every day. We've delivered meals to Powder River, areas that have less amenities than we do. There's no grocery stores. There's no place for them to shop. But, it's really important for our volunteers to do a check on our people. It's another set of eyes to make sure everyone's safe in their homes. But without our volunteers, absolutely, we would not exist. There's no way we could pay 51 drivers a day to deliver anywhere between, I would say, 10 and 20 meals to individuals in their homes.
But still, there's costs that come out of this, not just in the cost of the meals and the prep. That's still going to cost money.
Oh, yeah.
And then the fuel to get out there back, I would assume, as well. But now there's also, and this is where the community does come in, and again, our friend Rihanna Brand has shown me this because I've taken the tour of those facilities. Mm-hmm. The amount of food and other resources that are donated to you from restaurants and grocery stores and so on is an astronomical number, but it still doesn't cover everything.
No, we spend approximately, on food alone, just raw food, we spend approximately $40,000 a month.
Wow.
Because all our meals have to meet 1/3 of the dietary guidelines. Amy's do too. So we have to meet 1/3 of 42 nutritional components. It's not cheap to eat healthy. It's not. And so when you're talking about low sodium, low fat, low calorie, low carb, low everything, but high vitamins, and it gets expensive. It's very, very expensive.
So let's dig into a little bit and this is where I think a lot of the confusion for this comes from. So again, it's not just a place where people go play.
No.
There's a lot of services there. But now as far as the funding for all of this goes, so there's federal money, I guess? State of Wyoming?
Federal money, and there's state money.
What about local money?
Those are things that we are required from the government. We are required to find local money.
Okay. And you do that by going, to the city council, to the county government?
Well, we write grants. We rely on donations. We have fundraisers.
Okay.
That's where we find our local money.
Yeah. So every single year, then, it's a scramble to bring in enough money?
Absolutely.
Okay. Need growing, I would assume?
Absolutely, the need's growing, and it's only going to get significantly
Wyoming
worse.
is getting older.
Well, and we have the figures of what this is going to look like for our senior population by 2030. 1 in 5 people will be over age 65 in Wyoming. Wyoming's got one of the fastest growing elderly populations in the nation. But we've always known that was coming with our baby boomers. That's why the health care was in such a panic, and still is.
Okay. So now, in putting all of this together, that means someone's spending a whole lot of time in the office making sure that funding is constantly coming in.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's talk, am I getting this right, from Natrona County, a new senior center, or am I thinking of someplace else?
Nope. No, we're not looking at a new senior center.
You're not looking at a new senior center. Okay, okay. So you're talking about any expanding of this one?
No.
No, okay.
And let's define expanding.
Okay.
We currently have 105 people on a waiting list for services in their home. So if we were to find a way to be able to give them the services, is that expansion?
Right.
I mean, I don't call that expansion.
So that's not a building, but that still is expanding services.
We don't need to expand the building. Let's put it that way, unless the exercise class gets any bigger. But we would like to be able to see the rest of these 105 people, but we can't because we can't increase the payroll.
Right.
And that would take more, it would take more staff.
Right, right. And then where do you get the volunteers from?
We networking, referrals. We, at the senior center, we have in the building 10 volunteers a day.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't even imagine where we would be without the volunteers.
Well, and as you were saying, as for Meals on Wheels, it's not just within the city areas around here, but sometimes you guys are driving way out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, we're fortunate to have been able to, work with companies. We don't have just individual volunteers. We have a lot of local businesses that volunteer for us, too. We have several banks, other businesses around town that put together teams. And that's what we have in Midwest and Edgerton. They stop in the morning. They pick up the meals for the towns of Midwest and Edgerton, and then they have a volunteer group that deliver them at noon. So
okay, so there's a lot of checking in on people.
Oh, absolutely, yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. So now, have we covered everything?
No.
Go on. Please go on.
Okay, so there's been some misinformation regarding the district, the senior district. And we wanted the voters to have the facts regarding this district.
Okay.
A little background that we've kind of already touched on. The senior population will increase significantly. By 2030, it is estimated that 1 in 5 people in Wyoming will be over the age of 65. Services for these folks in Natrona County are at a tremendous risk. Income has not kept up with expenses. And that shouldn't come as such a surprise. Income isn't keeping up with expenses in any homes or industries, particularly industries that rely on state and federal government right now, because their income isn't keeping up. Yeah. We all know that. Agencies that would benefit from the district include Meals on Wheels, the Senior Center, and Wyoming Senior Citizens. Those are the agencies we've identified right now. There may be other agencies in Natrona County that would qualify per state statute. And I want to talk about state statute for a moment. The state statute to establish a senior district was enacted at legislature in Wyoming in 1997. So this is not something new. They clearly put it in place for a reason.
Yeah.
Our folks in Cheyenne. The state statute dictates every single thing that we can do with this, including the verbiage on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And I have a copy of the state statute here, which I've encouraged everybody to read the state statute, and I'm going to leave them with you.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. I'm a geek. I read stuff like this.
Good, so you should.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll take that.
So one of the misconceptions that's out there is that we were able to put this on a ballot by incorrect means, and there was nothing could be further from the truth. If you look at the state statute, there's two methods to getting this on the ballot. Page 1 of the statute. It states, a majority of the Board of County Commissioners adopt a resolution favoring establishing a district. So that's where the Board of County Commissioners say, yes, we think this should be on the ballot. And then there's this neat little word, or the Board of County Commissioners receives a petition for the establishment of a special district signed by qualified electors resident in the proposed district equal is number to at least 15% of registered voters. So we could do one of either method. When we were getting serious and talking about this, we really didn't feel we had time. So we chose the method of going in front of the county commissioners and presenting a case of putting it on the ballot. They didn't say they were for it. They just, all they had to do is say, yes, this can be on the ballot, and it'll be up to the voters.
Okay. How is it going to read on the ballot?
So it's going to read on the ballot. Also, if you look at page 1 of the state statute, we didn't write the state statute. It was written in Cheyenne. And you go to the bottom of the state statute. This tells us how it has to be worded on the ballot.
Because the wording is very important. It's everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And the ballot proposition for formation of a district shall and must appear subsequently as follows. Shall the Natrona County Senior Citizen Service District be established with a maximum levy of blank mills, and it'll say 1 mill, and then it'll say not to exceed 2 mills. And I'll touch on that a little bit. To be imposed on the taxable property of the district, yes or no.
Right.
That is how it has to be on the ballot, and that's how it is on the ballot.
Which is one thing I like about the way Wyoming does it. That's very clear.
It's very clear.
What happens if that's voted? Because people around here don't like to vote for extra taxes. So if you don't get it, then what?
Well, we will probably, that's one thing I said yesterday to the board is if this doesn't pass, we're going to need a meeting immediately.
Okay.
To decide how to move forward. And I'm going to, with income not keeping up, and I have all our financials from the senior center with me. When I started nearly 2 years ago and looking back, I could clearly see, probably like 4 or 5 months after I started, I could clearly see where they were having to use reserves to pay the bills every month for roughly 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable. And now there is roughly maybe the senior center maybe has a year left.
Okay.
That's it. And that's just to stay status quo.
Yeah.
That's not to increase wages. That's not to increase capital improvements and these kind of things. This is strictly to remain status quo. So we will have to have some very hard talks. Best case scenario would be severe reduction in services at the center, and which will mean reduction in staff, reduction in everything.
All right.
I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah.
I've pushed the clock way back here, so I got to come up on news and stuff like that. For people who want to know more, get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
Where do they go?
They just call me.
Okay.
You call me. My door is open to anyone who wants to learn more about this. We've had 3 town halls. We've worked tirelessly trying to get the information out there.
Okay. They contact you how?
Call the Senior Center, 307-265-4678.
Or just look up the Senior Center.
Absolutely.
Google it. It'll pop up. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Got something to say to Glenn? Use the chat on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app and get your opinions straight to the studio with K2 Radio.
9:28 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. It's coming up on news time, bottom of the hour here. There's a lot that we have to go through. in just a few minutes, but it's still open phones. So when we get done with some local news, update on your weather forecast, and you and I get back into it again. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I have guests on like that because the rule that I established for this program, if we talk about somebody, either I do or a caller does, whatever the case is, and people want to come in and say, that's wrong, I'd like to set the record straight, I let them do it. And I just let them lay it out in front of us. And you guys are smart enough to make up your own minds about that. So for those people that are not just in the Trona County area, wherever you are in Wyoming, similar seniors center issues will come up in front of you on this election cycle. So look for it on your primary ballot and on the general election ballot. And you can even read the state statute, and there's federal statutes on developing these senior settings. So, okay. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. In the next segment, you can talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject. That's all good by me. Gonna be a little bit warmer this weekend. We get into your weather forecast segment. It'll talk about that. Hotter, but not disgustingly hot. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
afternoon. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
$9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Back to the phones we go. 888-97-WOODS. Brad Buckner's on the line because there's buffalo out there, and one of them, for once, needs to be bum-tackled, and the human needs to win the fight. Hi, Brad.
That's absolutely correct. Good morning. How you doing?
Very good. So
yep.
We're talking about the big buffalo hunt.
Yes, we are, and that would be the Laramie Peak Fire Zone Foundation annual fundraiser, the buffalo hunt. And so what it is, it's a raffle, and you can get one ticket for $5 or 5 tickets for $20. The drawing is going to be held September the 18th up at the Fire Hall by Laramie Peak, and the hunt is October the 10th, and the hunt is for 2 people. The hunter and a friend can go along. You have to be at least 14 years old to actually shoot the buffalo. This is the processing. You get the hide, the head, you get everything. You get to go shoot the buffalo, and all that. So it's a lot of fun. You get a guided tour of the historic Twin Pine Ranch. There's first, second, third, and fourth place. First is, of course, the buffalo hunt, and then the second is a Model 307 Weatherby 30-06. Third place is a Weatherby Camilla Edition 243 for the ladies, and fourth place is $250. So it's a lot of fun. You get to go out and shoot the buffalo. You get the meat. You probably get 275 pounds cut and wrapped meat. And again, it's one ticket for $5, 5 tickets for $20. LaramiePeakFireZone.org. That would be LaramiePeakFireZone.org. One word, small letters. You can also call 307-331-9146 for information. And then you can also call 307-322-5650 for questions answered. You can also mail to 1836 Cottonwood Park Road, Wheatland, Wyoming, 82201, your request with a self-addressed stamped envelope and payment at 5 tickets for $20, 1 ticket for $5, and they'll mail you the receipt. And of course, the closer we get to the actual drawing, may not have time to mail you the stub, but we will broadcast the drawing. So that's a lot of fun. Sure. 1836 Cottonwood Park Road. And if you just want to come up for the drawing, and that would be on September the 18th is a drawing. Come on up, enjoy the day, watch us draw the ticket, things like that.
And if you want to bare knuckle brawl,
LaramiePeakFireZone.org, get your information, buy your tickets, and everything online.
If you want to bare knuckle brawl the buffalo, that's fine for them too. They don't mind. They'll go ahead.
Yeah, we'll let you. You have to sign a waiver.
Sure.
Not many people come out of that in very good shape.
No, not really. No. All right, Brett. Thank you very much. Off to Cheyenne we go to talk to Steve. Hello, Cheyenne.
Hello, Glenn. How are you, sir?
Very good, sir. What you got?
Well, I'd like to run some numbers by you right quick there.
Okay.
The Meals on Wheels and the Senior Center do wonderful work, but this tax is, I think, misguided there because these commissioners run it into the general fund. The Laramie County collected $24 million in property tax last year, and they banked $32 million into an account that's numbering $250 million.
Right. Now, the ladies that I had on, though, the ladies I had on were for Natrona County, so those numbers might be a little different.
Well, they might be, but I think the same thing pertains to Laramie County here.
Okay.
And they had that 6 for $6 to buy new fire engines that wouldn't fit in a fire department.
Right.
And just, I think those numbers, collecting $24 million in property tax, banking $32 million into an account that numbers $250 million, that we need to have a forensic audit of where this money is going.
Okay.
So, that's all I have to say about it, but be aware before you approve any taxes for anywhere, these guys are not being forthright, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. One more thing, and I didn't get a chance to get to this today. Maybe I'll save this and we'll do it on Monday. From Cowboy State Daily is this great story. Sweetwater County. Residents are at war. There's it looks like a sweet little old lady who came into a restaurant. It looks like a very nice restaurant in the picture. And she's sitting in a booth eating her lunch, and next to her is her dog. Yeah, not a particularly big dog, but not a little tiny yapping thing either, somewhere in the middle. And people are really upset. Some people hate the idea that she's able to bring a dog into the restaurant and sit with her like that. And that's not sanitary. You can't do that. Other people say it's fine. People were questioning on social media whether the dog was a emotional support animal or some kind of other service dog. We don't know if that's the case or not. And the law states that if it's an emotional support animal or some kind of service animal, then that's okay. They can bring it in. But any other dog, no. And so that's where the debate is right now. And I didn't get a chance to get into that today, but I'll try to bring it up Monday because I think that's a conversation worth having. I've even seen people – I don't mind if I walk into a hardware store and there's dogs all over the place. I think that's kind of fun. Some people get upset when they see a dog in the grocery store and they worry about sanitary issues and so on. So you see there's a lot to discuss there. It's what the big conversation on social media in Sweetwater County is. So maybe on Monday I'll bring that one around. You guys got the weekend to think about it.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
9:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to Laramie to talk to David Settle. David, I came across a meme that I shouldn't have read because I realize now I have totally screwed myself.
Uh-oh.
There's no recovery from this. It shows, first off, a puppy, which is a good thing, and it's a beagle.
Right.
And it's sitting in a nice lounge chair wearing a robe and sipping on a glass of wine. What could be wrong, right? And it says, the secret to a happy life. Now, there you go. The meme, as most of the Internet does, is going to tell us, it's going to explain everything.
Yeah.
That's all you need. You don't need religion, government, nothing. A meme will fix your life.
Yeah.
The secret to a happy life is to drink good wine and avoid talking to morons. Okay. Now, you might agree with this, and I don't think that that's wrong at all. But here's the problem, Dave. 1, I don't drink.
Okay.
2, I host a radio talk show.
Yeah, so you don't drink, so you can't enjoy the wine. 2,
yes.
Hosting a talk show, you absolutely
talk to morons.
Talk to idiots.
Yes, that's right, yeah. I talk to morons. I talk about morons. I have to deal with morons all day long. I have totally screwed myself on this one, Dave, and I don't know what... Oh, yuck it up, pal. Fine. Dave Settle is just laughing at my misery over here. And I don't know. So the only thing now, this makes sense as to why I know quite a few talk show hosts out there who are heavy drinkers.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess they're compensating by, instead of just enjoying the occasional glass of wine, oh no, they hit the sauce. And I think because they decided to spend their lifetime talking to morons, which I think is just, trust me, Dave, don't.
Yeah, well, I have to deal with my fair share of morons.
I'm sure you do.
From time to time. Not as many as you do, I'll say that much.
I do have this as a rule, and friends of mine are very accommodating, and I always thank my friends for being this way. So when we get into the weekend, I am no longer talking politics and social issues.
There you go.
Do not come up to me, and I do have listeners who come up and say hi, and that's always fine. Do not try to engage me in conversation like you would on the radio. It's the weekend, and I need to decompress.
You got to unplug a little bit.
I want to be like that puppy sitting there in the robe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand that completely. All right, thank you very much, Glenn. Let's talk a little high school sports. The golf season got underway yesterday at the Douglas Invite. Maddie Brace on her home course fired in day 281 and ended up beating her teammate Molly Parker by 5 shots with a 167 total. She helped the Douglas girls win the team title by 47 shots. Tate Nichols of Wheatland went wire to wire to win the boys. He fired a 65 on day 1, came back, struggled a little bit more on day 2 with a 75, but still won by 6 shots over his teammate Brecken Sandlian. And the Wheatland boys ended up winning the team crown at the Douglas Invite as they fired a 2-day total of 600 and were 29 shots ahead of Kelly Walsh. You also had action at the Glen Rock JV Invite. Green River started day 1. And you do have some golfers from Laramie and Cheyenne in that, but it's Riker Lind with a 3-shot lead over Daniel Meyer of Cheyenne East, who is in second place. Nash Coleman of Cheyenne East is in 4th, and Carson Moniz of Laramie tied for 5th as they get day 2 underway. On the girls' side, the top performer, Bella Beach of Cheyenne Central, started at 95. She's tied for 10th on the girls' side of the ledger. And you can check out some results at wildpreps.com and on the Wild Preps app. High school tennis season starts tomorrow. That's right. You've got a few duels, and then Casper's got a little jamboree round-robin action that isn't official scores, but Kelly Walsh and Natrona will host Rollins and Sheridan for that. The rest of the teams will debut next week. That does include Laramie hosting Kelly Walsh and Natrona County for duels in Laramie coming up on Monday, August 19th. And in case you missed it, we did select our Wild Preps Athletes of the Year for softball and Legion baseball. Softball, we've had the selection made. Finally had a chance to catch up and visit with this young lady, but Natalie Clonch out of Thunder Basin was the award winner, helped the Bolts win their 3rd straight team championship, and Pals Brock Johnson earned our Wild Preps Athlete of the Year honor for Legion baseball. He was an All-State player, 1st team for the 4th straight year, 5th time earning an All-State accolade in his career. He was the Player of the Year and Pitcher of the Year selected by the coaches in Single-A American Legion baseball, and he's off to Central Arizona College. He's already down there, actually. You can check out the video interviews with those 2 student athletes at wildpreps.com and on the Wild Preps app. Cowboy football continues fall camp. A light practice today before they scrimmage tomorrow. Coach Savell said it'll be kind of dependent on positions and experience with that scrimmage tomorrow. So some guys will get more work versus other guys. He did say that Harrison Whaley, the running back who had an injury last Saturday, he had his knee scoped on Wednesday. Things went well for the surgery. They're hoping for a quick recovery there. Cowgirl soccer team played to a scoreless draw in their first match of the season at Washington last night. 0-0 at Husky Stadium in Seattle. Both teams fired off 15 shots, but none of them got by the 2 keepers. And Haley Bartell logged a shutout, the 2nd of the sophomore's career. She made 4 saves in the match. Cowgirls play at Colorado on Thursday, August 22nd. You've got preseason football for the Denver Broncos. Their 2nd preseason game Sunday, 6 p.m. in Denver against the Green Bay Packers. And then the Rockies start a 3-game weekend series at Coors Field in Denver tonight against the San Diego Padres. First pitch is at 6:40 Mountain Time. That is your sports today.
So you have your Athlete of the Year awards. I'm going to come up with my Fat Lazy Couch Potato of the Year awards.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, we do not only Athlete of the Year for all the sports that we cover, but also Athlete of the Week honors. And you can actually nominate those at wildpreps.com.
Hey, how about the Couch Potato of the Week, too? The laziest damn person. Can't even get up and reach over to the coffee table for the remote kind of guy.
probably several qualifiers in our audience.
I'm sure. Thank you, Dave. Have a great weekend. Wake up, Wyoming.